Waiting. Hey everybody, welcome to Craft Quest. I am Ari Augustine. I'm a writer, blogger, one of the co-founders of Craft Quest, and today we're going to be talking about how you, lovely writers, can take care of yourselves. Megan.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan. I am a writer, blogger. I am 1/3 of the Inkwell Council, which is a critique service, and I am recently announced as a Pitch Wars mentor for young adult in 2018. Yay!
Hello everyone, I'm Justine. I am a writer of YA fiction and editor, and I work for the Inkwell Council as well. I'm 1/3 of the council. And an avid reader, I guess.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria, one half of Craft Quest, writer, editor, all-round reader. And like Ari said, we are going to talk a little bit about today about self-care, which I don't think could have come at a better time because right now a lot of you are in the middle of Camp NaNoWriMo. And Pitch Wars is also coming up, which is very intensive. So why don't we start with, a little bit of conversation about our own bad habits. So we all have bad habits that we fall into. What habits do you think writers are most susceptible to? Megan, we'll start with you.
Uh-oh. Am I going first? Sorry, you cut out a little bit. Susceptible writer habits. I'd say self-doubt is probably like the number one habit that everyone kind of falls into, that you think you're not really good enough and everything sucks and there's no point to writing anything because, it's just gonna be bad. But the good news is, is that a first draft can be revised and edited, and all that bad stuff that you think is terrible will eventually be better. I'd say the other bad habit is probably thinking that if you're not writing or working towards your story in any way, you're actually not being productive at all, which definitely isn't true. I am a big believer in this because I am not one of those people that can write every day. I need breaks. I also kind of need different ways to get inspired again, whether that be watching a movie or reading a book or playing a video game or literally doing anything that may not seem writing related, but when I come back into it, I'm way better off than I was to start with. So those are definitely two of mine, and I know from experience they're also two of others. So
I think a big one that a lot of people do is procrastination. I think that we it's like if I don't start it, then it won't be bad. And just keep pushing it off. I think that it's a really difficult one to overcome just because getting started is, I think, the biggest battle. They say, I forget the quote. I wish I had it at the tip of my fingers right now, but that 90% is button seat. And if you can get yourself there in front of the computer and write, or in front of the pad or whatever, if the paper is there and you can write, then you've already fought half the battle. And I'm really big on this. You will find me floating around the internet a lot when I can't write, just pushing it, or when I'm in a tough scene. If you see me on Tumblr reblogging everything, it's usually because I'm just out of ideas or stuck on a scene. Also, Pinterest is a big thing that I do when I can't write. I just start pinning all the things. So I think that's a really big one. And also self-editing in the middle of your story, I think is a big one, where you just go back and reread over it. And I know Megan's giving me a look because she does that as practice.
I was about to say story of my life.
But
story of my life.
Not everyone can do that without completely discouraging themselves. So
I'll talk more about it later, but I have ideas.
Maria?
So on top of everything that's already been said, I think one of my worst habits is on the complete opposite spectrum of, being a procrastinator. I go into this tunnel of nothing else is going on. There's nothing around me. There is just this bubble, and I'm writing, and it doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I have to keep writing. And it's a terrible habit, and it's very self-destructive. Particularly when I'm drafting for the first time, because it's sometimes for me, a first draft can be very forced. I'm much better when it comes to editing. I'm better able to step away, you know, and I am like the speed queen when it comes to editing. But for first time drafts, and it's like I said, it's very self-destructive when I get into that zone. I skip meals. Sometimes you know, I'm running on 3 hours of sleep, because I'm on a roll and I'm on a roll and I'm on a roll. And sometimes I guess we feel as writers that, you know, when the words are flowing, we need to keep going because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, when we're really like just vomiting those words, 50% of them get cut anyway, you know, in the revising and the editing process. So that's probably my worst habit. Ari?
Wait, can I just say that when the words are flowing, we have to keep going? Maybe my favorite new catchphrase.
There you go.
Sorry.
We seem to have a new catchphrase. Like every time we do this, we have something else.
T-shirt time.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, Ari, go ahead.
So I think I'm gonna answer both the questions because I think there was like a twofer there. I agree with Maria. I think a lot of writers, like one of the main things is the tunnel vision. I think a lot of writers get that where they're in the zone and that's what they're focusing on. They don't have kids. They don't have a husband. What about that pet? No one has a pet. Not really. Not anymore. It's all about what you're writing. I certainly do that, but I think my greatest sin is cutting the sleep and obsessing over the details. And sometimes the obsession is good. Sometimes it gives me a great idea, or, you know, like it helps me think of a plot twist or something. But the majority of obsessiveness for me is not good at all. It kind of goes hand in hand with the tunnel vision. I will keep going while the words are flowing, but long after the well has dried, I'm still trying to pump a drop out of that baby, and there's nothing there. So I think that that's definitely where I fall short with my bad habits. I do procrastinate a lot too. Justine, you and I have that in common. I'm mostly like I'll listen to music. I'll add to my playlist, which was like approaching 100 songs last week, and I had to start purging the songs that aren't really related. But Pinterest and things like that. So you can always tell when someone really wants to write, but they're not actually writing because they'll start posting everything except for snippets of what they wrote, or, you know, or actually getting off of Twitter and writing. So that's my answer.
I love it. Which actually leads us on to the second question, which is, out of all these bad habits, which do you commit the most? So, I mean, I already spoke about the one I feel like I commit the most, but I think out of everything that everyone has said, one of my, I guess the thing that probably like Ari would like yell at me for, because she's always like telling me to step away and, you know, do what needs to be done, is not taking a break. Like you said, like, you know, there comes a point when it doesn't matter how much of a role you're on, the words just start to stutter and sputter and stop. And then you sit there and you try and force your way through. And like Ari said, I don't have a kid. I don't have a husband. I don't have anything. You know, you guys don't even want to see my kitchen. I haven't done dishes in weeks. So, you know, it's one of those things. And, you know, I really, really try because, you know, like a lot of people out there, I have full-time job, or a parent. And then I'm trying to write on top of it all. So, you know, I really try and I'm really trying to be a scheduler in my regular life where I can really schedule in my write time. Like my son goes to bed at 8 p.m. I have to be in bed by 10:30. So I have like, I can do like 2 hours between him going to sleep and, you know, me having to go to bed. But then 9 times out of 10, I end up staying up to 1 o'clock in the morning and having to be up at 6 a.m. So, you know, I think really the taking a break and realizing you can step away and then trying to stick to a schedule. Those are probably my, like, that's the one I commit the most. Megan.
There we go. Okay. Well, Justine brought up mine because she has to, because she knows the endless conversations we had about it. So my biggest one would definitely be self-editing. I think it's gotten worse the more I've gotten involved in editing. It's like a double-edged sword of, I know, like, the bad things that happen in other people's writing, so now I look for it in mine almost every single time. So I cannot write the way I think that most people write, where they write kind of like word vomiting, where whatever you have in your head is kind of coming out either based on your outline or based on whatever's happening. And then at the end of it all, you either go back to it or you'll wait till you have more and then you'll go back to it at that point. Oh, I cannot do that. I kind of edit as I go because I feel like if not, it's just a mess and it's terrible. And you know what? It probably still is a mess and it's terrible because, that's just how it's going to be. But I kind of edit it to death. And I know that in my head, I'm telling myself, you are doing this too much. You need to just move on. But even like one wrong word annoys me and I have to fix the word. I have to fix the sentence or I have to fix the character's name. That could be changed later. But in my brain, it's not really a later problem. It's a now problem. So there is a perk to it. The perk is that when I finally finish the entire conglomeration, it's probably not nearly as messy as it would have been if I hadn't done that. But the negativity is, well, there are several, but like the main problem is that I think more of the self-doubt creeps in earlier because I'm seeing how much of a mess it is early and I'm focusing, that's not a word, on every little detail instead. So I wish like I had like an exact solution to this problem and I'm still working on it. I think what's been working for me right now, or I've been forcing myself to do, is just write stuff for fun and write stuff without this added pressure of it needs to be this amazing great thing, because it's never going to be an amazing great thing in the first shot.
Mine is story time. Sorry. So I said the procrastination thing, but it's actually a part of a larger story. I don't practice what I preach. I am a big time proponent of writing through it, even if it sounds bad. And yet I spent the first 2 weeks of NaNoWriMo stuck on a scene because I mean, a whole lot of things come into play. I've recently been dealing with some health problems, and I was blocked up and the creativity just wasn't flowing, which is a bad time for it to happen because it was the beginning of Camp Nano. And not only am I doing Camp Nano as a writer, but I was trying with the Inkwell Council to do a cabin at camp to inspire other people. So I really felt motivated to do the thing, right? If your camp counselor can't do it, then how are the campers going to do it? So I have been sort of beating myself up because I've been stuck on this one scene where I have this test that needs to happen where my main character is proving that she is a good strategizer, and I couldn't come up with a strategy. And rather than just sort of write dumb anything filler and go past it and get to the good scene, the Justine who sits there and goes, "Megan, don't self-edit," was sitting there obsessing like a crazy person over one scene for 2 weeks where I'd write like a paragraph and then I go, "Yeah, I'm out. I can't do anymore." And finally, I think I'm mostly to the end of that scene, but I'm still talking about the same chapter for almost a month.
And then my advice to you was skip it.
I know, and I can't do it because it's like a critical scene, and to me, I can't write past it. But like, I feel like I won't get the character. It's like a character defining moment in the story. And so, I'm sorry, Ari.
I just want to jump in and say that, like, Maria has said that to me many times. Like, just move on, just go to the next chapter, just focus on another scene. But this one line of dialogue is just wrong. And it's like somebody's trying to get you to go skydiving, and you're already in the plane, you're at the freaking door, and you just can't get out.
Yes!
It is exactly what it's like to be stuck on a line or a section in the story, and for whatever reason, it's like a mental cliff. It's like, I can't go over, I don't trust the parachute I have. I understand that perfectly. I just wanted to say that I get it.
So July of last year, I did Camp Nano, and I killed 50,000 words in a month. And my health problems had kicked up in April, And I was like, okay, for this new book, I am going to cut it to 30,000 since they let you set your amount because, you know, I have some stuff I'm dealing with. And so I'm going to go and cut it to 30,000 and I'll get through that. And I did that. And then this time it was like, I set it at 30,000 again. And then like a week and change into it when I was still in the same scene, I was like, 15,000 looks good. And I still not there yet, and we're getting really close to the end. I think I'm at like 9,000 now, and some of that was for a blog post I wrote. It wasn't even for the story I was working on. So I may have cheated a weensy bit, but yeah. So I'm trying to teach myself to like not beat myself up, because my immediate thought when I did that, I went into camp and cut down my word count and went on the chat room and I'd apologize to everybody. Like I was like a disappointment. and it's like, no, life gets you down. Sometimes you can't do these things. You can't work as hard as you want, or your brain gets stuck. And I think the hardest part for me is just sort of where I tell everybody, it's okay. It's all right. You know what? You did something today. You wrote 20 words. It's 20 more words than you had. It doesn't matter. I don't do that. I kill myself over it. So that's probably the thing I need to fix. Ari?
Okay, sorry, I had issues unmuting myself. I have that issue, as I've already made clear. Maria's probably the one that keeps me the most sane, because she just seems to know. Like, oh, where you at now? Oh, I'm over here. You're still stuck on the same line, aren't you? Like, she just knows when I'm stuck. But I think that my biggest thing probably is obsessing over just little details. I'm a big picture person, so I always see the holes everywhere, and I'm a big believer that you shouldn't drive on a road that has potholes. And so I struggle with that a lot. As I'm going, I find holes, I find flaws, and I want to do what Megan does. I want to take care of it because it is a now issue. But in my mind, there is never an absolute fixing of that problem. Like once I fix it, I just find another issue, or I find that fixing that just made something else wrong, and it just goes on and on and on. It's a never-ending hole for me. So I can't edit as I go. I think obsessing over at least having the skeleton look right, it gets just caught up in my head and I can't move forward. I do procrastinate a lot, Justine, but I think it's only because I obsess so much over things, and then I get overwhelmed, and then I start procrastinating. And so what I started to do, actually, well, no, I'll save that for the other part, for the solution section. But I found like little ways to kind of help alleviate it. But I think that that's my biggest problem, is just getting stuck, not being able to move forward, because I know logically that the scene will be fine. If I move on and continue writing other scenes, the book's going to progress. Everything's going to be okay. It's going to be ugly and it's trash fire, but it's okay. It's better than like having no trash fire at all. Better to be warm than freezing to death. But I still get hung up on it. Like there's a little cog in the back of my head that spins round and round and just takes note of all the little things. So, yeah, I think I obsess way too much, but I'm working on it. Whoever's next.
It's funny too, because what you said, I like what you just described, I like to call the Spanx effect. Like it gets sucked in one place and then it has to come out another. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's crazy, but anyway, so we'll get on to some solutions. So what solutions or advice would you give to fellow writers? I think for me, I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of soul searching. And I'm moving on into a new chapter of my life right now. There's a lot of change happening. My son's going to kindergarten in the fall. I'm starting a new job, and I'm beginning to realize that there's a lot of like soul searching that I really have to do when it comes to my writing. I can't have that tunnel vision. I know the words need to flow, and if they are flowing, I should keep going. But I'm really beginning to realize that I need to think this through. When you are so focused on your writing, a lot of things start to slip at home and in relationships, with family and things like that. So, this is going to be some real talk. And you begin to, or at least I begin to isolate myself from everyone around me. I don't even want to go out sometimes. Like I'm one of these extroverted introverts where inside I'm screaming and like outside I'm pretending to be normal. So, for me personally, having that tunnel vision, mommy will be done in 15 minutes, things like that. It's, I really begin to realize that it's not only affecting me, but it's affecting the people around me. And not getting enough sleep is a problem, because I can't function in my real life. So this is like not a revolutionary thing, but I was doing some thinking and I realized something really silly that could change my outlook on everything. So if I were to write 500 words a day, 500 words a day, if I set that limit for myself, I would have a full-length manuscript in 6 months. That's 90,000 words, 500, like 90,000 words in 6 months, which is only 500 words a day. Now, there are going to be days where I'm not even going to be able to put those words down because I'm blocked. Like you guys said, the dialogue's not working. There's something wrong with this scene. I know with my last manuscript, there was one scene in particular. It's a whole chapter. It was maybe 2,500 words, and it took me almost 3 months to write it because I wanted to get it right in the moment, and I had to make it impactful, and it was like a pivotal point in the entire manuscript, and it took me 3 months to do it. So I know that saying 500 words a day for 6 months, sounds really small, but there are going to be days when I'm not going to be able to do that. But I think if I can start that little bitty piece, because there are times when I do half-hour sprints and I can get 400 words done in a half hour. Again, it's not necessarily quality, but even if I get the bones down, as I'm at a point now in my writing where as I'm writing in the moment, I know immediately, like I'm about to like start talking about breakfast the next day. And immediately in my head, I'm going, nope, what comes next? So I'm like, well, they had breakfast and now we move on, as opposed to describing what happens at breakfast and things like that. But, not everyone can do that either. And not everyone's at that point. So I think that's probably what I'm going to focus on go forward. And that is my tip. Set a very low word count goal for yourself. And if you make it a daily goal, I find, because, sometimes in my head I'm going, okay, if I do 3,000 a week, but then Monday's gone, I didn't bother. Tuesday comes, I'm done. Wednesday, I can't think right now. Thursday, oh, I get an hour done. And all of a sudden you're at like Saturday or Sunday and you have 500 words for the week. So I think breaking it down into teeny tiny little morsels on a daily basis, I think that's where I'm going to go. That's what I'm doing. Megan, what about you? Any tips?
Yes, because I found that this has been helping me. So I have a double dose of anxiety and depression, which makes writing even worse. But I'm going to elaborate on the self-edit thing because I feel like even if you don't do it to the same extent I do, it still ties in with like self-doubt and being a perfectionist, and also like kind of what Ari and Justine were saying of hyper-focusing on something. So I found that I need breaks. I tended to do something similar to Maria, where I would not stop until I finished writing a chapter, which is unrealistic because, one, chapters vary in length, and two, sometimes you just don't know what needs to be in a chapter at the time that you're writing it. So with my writing currently, we're at a very weird point right now where I'm kind of taking a break. Not sure for how long, but until, one, I have an idea that I really, really want to push for, but also an idea that I think I feel confident enough to write, and right now that's not happening. So what I've allowed myself to do instead is focus on things that, one, inspire me in other ways, but I've also started focusing on writing that is still writing, but not necessarily for the story that I'm working on, or even for anyone else to see. So a couple days ago on my Twitter, I posted a thing about like fan fiction and like forum role playing, and I started doing that again. because I found that one, it's easier for me to write that stuff without the pressure of other things going on. And two, I like it. And I think what is really important with me is I need to fall in love with writing again. So I need to remember why I liked it so much. I need to remember those lines that give me shivers or make me cry or make me like invested in it again, because I think all of my self-editing has made me forget. But I also think that like my anxiety and my hyper obsession and just having like stuff mentally take me down has also made me forget. So I think if you're struggling in that way, I think you need to remind yourself what it is you like about writing. Reread something that you really enjoyed, whether it be a book, whether it be your own work, or just write something that has nothing to do with anything. It makes a difference to write without pressure. And I think until I get to a point where I'm comfortable with writing and I'm not self-analyzing every little detail, then I will pick up my story again, whatever story that is going to be. But I have to learn to like, I think, myself and my relationship with writing again before I can even continue doing what I'm doing. And that is my tip.
Sorry, I had unmuting issues now. I alluded to health issues before. I was recently diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Also have depression and anxiety, so I'm like a big ball of mess. And in my entire life, not even just in my writing life, because if anybody knows me, I just do things all the time. I don't stop. There is no Justine calm time. If I'm on the train on the way to work commuting in, I'm reading, I'm writing, I'm always doing something. And in that way, I honestly do not like rest. I'll sleep at night, but my brain to go to sleep is still running. I'm still coming up with story ideas. I'm running a dialogue through my head. I don't know how to slow down. And so my method that I'm doing to try to solve this issue is to try to schedule myself calm time. Do the thing that's fun for you. Play a video game. Like, do something that's a little brainless and silly, but do it because you don't always have to be operating all the time. I have a day job, I have a son, I have a husband, I have friends, I have a life outside of writing, but I also want to write, and I also want to be able to kick back a little bit and not worry about anybody or anything. And so I've started, maybe it's a little silly because it's sort of micromanaging relaxing. Hey, I'm going to schedule in this hour to not do anything, which sounds kind of crazy, but it honestly, if I don't schedule it, I won't do it. And I'll lose track of the fact that I haven't really taken any time to just and so I've started actually scheduling myself rest time. And I don't know if it's working yet, but hopefully. It definitely seems like it's a step in the right direction, so that I'm not just for my overall health and for my brain when it comes to writing and just everything in general, just to make sure I have a little time for everything. And also, I've been doing the same thing that Maria mentioned, where I'm cutting my word count for the day to a small amount. And so I know I've written, so I can move forward from that and go and take that rest without feeling guilty. But I haven't written. I used to do 2,000 word counts in a day. And that takes a while. It's not, especially if you're stuck, you can spend all day trying to crack that out and still not make it. And so I feel like cutting it to something like you said, 500 is extremely helpful, so that I don't spend my whole day writing. And I'm able to balance all the other stuff that's going on. Ari?
Yeah, so about the me time or the fun time or the calm time. I'm taking notes. I find nap time is really beneficial. There's weird science about whether or not naps are actually helpful or not. I don't believe any of them, because I always feel really, really good after a nap. I tend to cut sleep when I'm writing. I'm an evening writer, so I forget that time exists outside my manuscript. So I keep going, and then I notice it's like 3 a.m. and I did nothing else. So nap time, especially if I'm trying, you know, being a little too hard on myself, or if I can't sleep, or because I'm too anxious, having a nap is, it sounds juvenile, but it's actually, it feels good, okay? So nap time. Having you time in general, I think going outside, sometimes I'll go for a walk. I don't really have any friends in Seattle, just so you know. It's a really hard place to make friends, believe it or not. And so I try to do some other stuff around here. I go to like some meetups. I try to get out of the house and do things that are fun and non-writing related, because as Megan said, sometimes if you're focused so much on editing and writing your own novel, it just takes all the love and joy and fun out of it, and you need to remind yourself of why you enjoy writing. So I think a lot of times I take a step back and I just read a book or two, specifically one I've already read, so that I'm not having to get overly emotionally invested in something new. And so I do that. I take naps. I started making minimum goals, bare minimum goals. I started this last week or the week before. That's when I switched Craft Crunch. It went from being like where you try to do everything, like a whole act in like 9 weeks, to just 500 words. Try to meet that. If you don't, it's whatever. It's between 0 and 500, and like that's it. And I find that minimum goals are great, because goals are supposed to be small and obtainable. And I'm not someone who starts out with the big stuff and just goes, oh, maybe 15 instead of 30. I go, no, I can still do it. I can still do it. Maria's in the corner like, no, it's not going to happen. So starting with like a minimum goal, and then when you reach that, if you still feel good about moving forward, like sometimes I still feel like I can write a few more words, I don't feel overwhelmed, I'll make like a new minimum goal of like adding 50 more words or something on there, and just kind of starting small and working your way up. Because I don't know, I try to remind myself that any progress is better than no progress, but then sometimes no progress is good in a sense, because it's helping you to make progress on another day. Because if I'm banging my head today trying to get something done, trying to get all this writing onto the page, and it's not productive, I'll be so frustrated the next day over that I probably won't do hardly anything then either. So taking a break will help you to be more, just move forward with your writing later. And so taking breaks, hydrate, don't forget to drink. You're not a plant. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I have anxiety too. That's all I really got. But I just obsess over way too much. So it's probably the best. And I want to say, like Justine, I will tell you all the ways to manage your time and all the best ways to, fix your problems and find solutions. I don't follow. I mean, I try, but I am terrible at following. Terrible.
I want to add something to your point, Ari. I think in writing culture specifically, and also I think in life in general, especially more so I think in urban places, there's this kind of culture behind you have to work all the time, whether it's if you're not writing, you're useless. If you're not doing the 8 side projects that you should be doing, you're useless. If you're not editing, you're useless, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's very hard to necessarily break this cycle. And I think it's also hard if you're on social media to an extent, because you see dozens or hundreds or however many people you follow, in this group that you're doing, either working towards something or maybe getting deals or maybe like getting a cool job that you want, things like that. And like, it can be really hard for people to step back and say like, I need to not do this, because if I'm not doing something, then man, maybe I won't be like that person who just got this thing done or got whatever. And it's like, yeah, sure. I mean, I think we're all kind of projecting in some ways this image that we're always working, always like pushing towards this goal, but sometimes you just need to not work towards that goal. And I don't mean like obviously give up, like that's not what I'm saying. I say that like breaks are important, self-care is important, and having to just remind yourself that like, look, sometimes you need those 2 hours to watch a movie, or a whole day playing video games, or maybe you just need to take that damn nap, because you know what, naps are great. But like we need to promote, I mean, not like we as us on this chat, but like we as a whole, as a society, as like people in this community need to promote like self-care is needed, and like you need breaks, you need time to just replenish yourself, because you can burn yourself out, and so what if you burn yourself out and you don't come back from it? Like you just need that time to be you and to do stuff that you haven't done in a while, or just enjoy living. And that is my philosophical point for the day.
Okay, now I have one. Okay, so real talk. I have a writing contemporary who I love, and I love everything she writes. This is not a complaint about her. She's fantastic and deserves everything she's got. She's also a little bit younger than me. We went to school together, and we were in two fiction writing classes together in college. And she is a very popular young adult writer, and I am twiddling my thumbs. I feel like that sometimes. I'm like looking at her doing better and better and better, and I'm like, that's great. And I'm not jealous of her. I'm just like, man, but she's younger than me, and she's gotten way further than me in this. And am I ever gonna get there, or is it just like, was she the one from our writing group that was going to do this? And I just am not going to ever get there. And I feel like everyone feels that way sometimes. And so it's important. Like I'm sitting there, like I'm saying this, right? And for all I know, she could tune in and I'd sound like an asshole. I'm sorry. But it's not an envy thing. It's just okay, that's awesome, but what about me? Like, I want to be successful too. And I think it's important for us to remind ourselves that, I'm sorry, excuse me, that's a little bit of a cold. It's important for us to remind ourselves that I lost my train of thought when I coughed. I've got to say that. That there's no age limit. You're not going to run out of time to write. As long as this is still working, you can still tell a story. And so you have to like be kinder to yourself. Don't try to put up a ruler next to all of the people that are publishing or getting these deals or getting all these things. It's hard because we're all in social media, and social media is a giant comparison temptation. And so, it's easy to do that, but I think it's important to remind yourself that you're going to do things, but at your own pace, and you don't have to attack everything at someone else's level because, their circumstances may be different. I'm saying this, right? I'm like, oh, this person's single. This person does not have kids. She just has a different life than I have. Like, and that's, her life is her life. My life is my life. I'm never going to be able to sit down and write a book all day. Like, that's just not the way my world works. And that's okay. But I have to remind myself that that's why I'm not, there may be many other reasons why, but that's a big reason why I'm not in the same place as some people that are the same age as me or older or younger rather. It's just we have different lifestyles. We have a different world. And so you don't know anybody else's story. For all I know, she could have a billion different reasons why she can't write too. But you don't know everyone's story. So comparing is kind of useless. You have to just focus on you and your progression. And I say that, and of course, I still do it. I mean, I can tell you that. But really what it is about is the awareness that you're doing it and sort of smacking yourself in the head and going, no. Because you're always going to slip up if you have certain like tendencies. If you tend towards judging yourself, or you in the middle, or you tend towards procrastinating, you'll find yourself doing it, but the important thing isn't going, oh, see, I did it again. Damn it. I'm useless as a writer. It's to go, okay, check yourself, turn your head back to what you were doing, and keep on the path, whatever that is. If it's taking your break and not getting obsessed about it, or if it's, going back and keep writing because you've stopped. But whatever you've chosen for your story, just get back on the track and don't let other people distract you. As hard as that may be. And that's my words of wisdom. I think.
I just want to add real quick to that, really quick before Maria goes. That includes like when you hear agents or publishers or other writers talking about things they did, like common themes or what, agents don't like. I see a lot of people, myself included. For example, the other day an agent was talking about openings that were like wrong. You know what I'm talking about, Maria? And I had to like avoid it. I had to turn Twitter off because if I read down that and found something that sounded remotely like my opening, which as writers we can just believe that it all sounds like something in our book, it would just I don't know, it would take me and just destroy for that day. I think that obsession, like not that obsession, but that comparing yourself to other writers also goes like with your work. When you look at what people aren't looking for in books or are looking for in books, and you start comparing yours and getting, kind of focused on trying to make it the way the industry says it should be instead of just writing the story that you want. And it's so easy to do that. I mean, I get worked up about things all the time, and I just have to turn off Twitter sometimes because I'll just forever compare my story to whatever's being said, oh, well, this is like you shouldn't have this in your story thing. But yeah, I just wanted to add that like that's something that happens too, that it's not just limited to people. It's, even when you have professionals speaking about things that they don't really like in books or that they do like in books, that just to be aware that that's subjective, to check yourself, as Justine said, and just write your story the way you want to and focus on that, which is easier said than done. But
I've actually had a similar issue. Actually, like I'm still struggling with this because this my second novel is still my second manuscript. It's not really like a novel yet. My second manuscript is still in edits, and I'm really struggling with this idea of people saying not to do prologues, because my prologue is, I have a prologue, and editors often say like, or agents often say they won't even look at the prologue, or they don't want prologues, or please don't include your prologues. My prologue's kind of important, but it doesn't work as a chapter one. And I'm like beating myself up, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just send it in. Maybe I just query with the dang prologue and see what happens. And because it's a part of the story and it works for my story. Maybe it doesn't work for everyone's, but there, I'm not just throwing it in there for no reason. But I struggle with it because it's frowned upon so often that I never really know that I'm doing the right thing. And I feel like with writing, you kind of never do. It's such a subjective thing. You're not going to know 100% this is the right way to go. You're going to know what feels best to you and what feels best for the story. And you can't stop yourself from doing that because you're just not, it's sort of like killing your artistic freedom by going, no, you know what, but that agent doesn't like that. So let me cut it out when I send it to this agent. Like you just can't tailor it to people. You have to find someone who will work with your story, not someone who you design your story for.
No, absolutely. And it's funny because I was going to piggyback off of what you had already said, Justine, which is, and I can't remember now because my train of thought is completely gone. But I have a point, I promise.
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
No, you're fine. Oh my goodness. What were we talking about? Okay. I have Alzheimer's apparently. So, one of the things I did just want to say, and this is what I was going to talk about. So you talked about your contemporary, and how well that they're doing at the moment, and you feel, maybe left behind. Just for everyone and for everyone's sanity, something I've realized now, I've been writing for 17 years. I'm not that old, I promise. But I have been writing for 17 years. And until I really joined the Twitter community, because really I was the only writer I knew, and, living in a bubble, basically. And it wasn't until I joined Twitter that I realized, I met all these amazing people and I was able to really expand my craft. It wasn't until then that I realized that a lot of my prior writing, what I was doing, all of my processes were like so damaging, not only to myself, obviously, but my manuscripts. And like you said, comparing yourself to somebody else, like it doesn't work. And a lot of, when I look back on some of my manuscripts, yeah, some of them are trash fires, let's be honest. But there's one or two gems in there that maybe with a little bit of editing now, with all the knowledge I have now, that, could have been something. But I see, and I'm really beginning to understand after all this time, that a lot of it is the right manuscript in front of the right agent at the right time. That's what a lot of it is. A lot of it is luck. I don't know if there's candle magic involved or voodoo or, what's going on. And, realizing that I'm the rule, not the exception. When you hear about these quote unquote overnight successes, and yes, there are a few out there, but we can probably all name those exceptions. Like I'll say an exception, it'll be the same exception on your mind, because they are so rare we talk about them, where it's the very first book that somebody ever attempted to write. They got an agent within 3 days of querying and had a book deal within a week. You can count those writers on one hand. And I could name them all right now, but I won't. Even less than one hand, I think. I can maybe think of 3 off the top of my head. But for every other overnight success, quote unquote, that you hear about, there's years of work that went into it. Years of work. They started writing whenever they started writing. They had failed manuscripts. It might seem like a fairy tale because maybe they query. You don't know how many agents they queried before the one they signed them. It could be three days from the time they got the full manuscript to wanting to represent them. But there could have been months and months and months involved before that. You don't know it because we don't hear about it. So, really understanding that it's okay. The publishing world moves at the pace of molasses. And, like I'm pretty sure Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass, it took 10 years. It took 10 years from conception to being on a bookshelf. So it can take you 6 months to write a first draft. It can take you another 2 years after that first draft is written to have it polished, ready for agents. It could take another 2 years while you're querying to land an agent. And after that, it could take them another 2 years to get you a book deal. And then it can take another 2 years to see it on the shelf. So it takes forever. And just understand, we're the rule. We are the rules. Like there are times, Justine, like you said, where you're just like, oh my God, my life, and where am I going, and when is this going to happen for me? And it's one of those things where you're like, well, is it really, I won't be able to live off the advance. Let's be honest. Let's talk realistically. The advance it's not like J.K. Rowling advance. It's not Stephen King advance. You'll be lucky to get, whatever you get. It's pocket change, and after tax and agent fees, forget it. And then hoping that you earn out that advance from sales. It's not something that I personally, I know I'm not going to be able to live off of, but it's the dream in my head that if I got signed, if I got a deal, my life would be so different. But the bottom line is, even if I were a published author and the clouds are parting and there's a choir of angels, even if I, was a published author, I'm still going to have to go to my 9 to 5. I'm still going to have to take care of my son. I'm still going to have to fit in my husband somehow, and still probably end up writing 500 words a day. So I think once that expectation set in, it took a lot of the pressure off. What's the point in getting 10,000 words written in a day? You're going to be cutting half of them during editing. And if you're not cutting half of them during editing, you might not be to a point where your manuscript, like you have the craft to polish it. I don't know. I know I wasn't. I have a record for word count in one day that's astronomical and ridiculous. And I slept for a full 24 hours after I did it. I don't even know if you could call it one day because it involved 26 hours of work, nonstop, Red Bull, toothpicks and eyes. It was 26,000 words in one sitting. I did not move from that damn couch. And let me tell you, all 26,000 words were cut when I went back to edit. It was a done deal. I didn't sleep. I was sick over it. I had like caffeine jitters, even though I wasn't drinking. Like, there came a point where it was like, oh my God. And it was so self-destructive. And this was a long time ago before I had my son. But I see people on Twitter every day talking about, I did 5,000 words. I got in like 8,000 words today. And I'm like, woosah, it's okay. Light a candle, put on some meditation music, and take a step back and chill. Because it doesn't matter how fast you get this done, even if it's the exception manuscript, it could take years before you see it on a shelf, and that's it. And I'm sorry, I just like talked for 10 minutes. My apologies. But I think the last question, which I've already had my answer. So why is it so important for writers to take care of themselves? Megan.
Oh, well, Maria, I think you gave all really there is to give to answer this question. But okay, well, the very obvious answer is as human beings, we all need things to survive. And if you are not eating and not sleeping and living off of Red Bull and any other thing you use to stay awake, you're going to crash and burn, both metaphorically and also physically, and also probably and mentally in there as well. Also, your craft suffers, you know? There's the whole big thing that a lot of people are thankfully finally pushing back on, that's the sentence I was trying to say, is this stereotype of like this tortured writer locked up in a room, mentally unwell for like 2 weeks, and then they come out and bam, everything's beautiful and wonderful, and they're gonna be a bestseller by next week. And I'm like, even if that happened, do you like I can't imagine the state that they're in when they come out of that. And I mean, like, let's look at like music as an example, 'cause I think music is a great example. If you listen to a lot of the lyrics of these artists that we know as like these tortured writers, they are in pain, okay? Like, it is very clear that even if they did this, 2 week, no, barely any sleep kind of thing, this is not healthy for anybody. And this notion of like, mental illness breeds creativity, and therefore only the most mentally ill or the most distraught or the most upset are going to make this great novel. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, for me, when I'm in depression, I think my writing is probably really strong because I'm using it as an outlet to get away from what's bothering me. But that doesn't mean that I want to be in that mental state the entire time to write a book, because good Lord, I've had very dark times, and I don't necessarily want to go back there to get this golden product, even if it's the product that's going to be, the one, because then where am I? I'm probably really sick. I'm probably cut off from everybody. I probably haven't showered in like 2 weeks. Sorry. But like, it's just not healthy. And I think learning to set limitations and learning to even just take a shower or eat something like that, you need to do that. Your body needs it to happen, and you need it to happen. Otherwise, all that stuff, all that work, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So in terms of self-care, please, for the love of everybody around you, but also for most importantly yourself. I think that's what we forget is we try to, produce all this stuff for other people and produce stuff to make ourselves look better sometimes for other people, or, because there are these expectations that we hold on ourselves based on society or people around us or even whatever, that we forget what we need and we forget what we should be doing for ourselves. And I think at the end of the day, in every story you create and whatever, you need to remember what you want and what you think will be best for you in the end. And that is my tip.
I think that my reaction to that is really, that question is really blunt. But if you are not here, you cannot write. If you have ridden yourself into the floor trying to create, then there is no more book. You will not publish. You don't want your stuff to be published posthumously. That's not, you want to be there to see any success you've gotten, and you want to be able to enjoy it. And so you do not want to ride yourself down all the way into your grave trying to work on stories. And maybe that's a little blunt and maybe that's a little harsh, but as someone who struggled with depression since I was tiny, you could do that, and it's a really dangerous path. And it's important to just, taking care of yourself helps your craft. It helps you to be able to create. Because let me tell you something, like what Megan said, where sometimes you write the best stuff when you're in a mess. That might be true, but is that all you're ever going to write? Is the tone of I'm depressed all the time? I mean, Poe got away with it, but you probably won't. We don't live in Poe's era anymore. But are there going to be no light moments? Well, when those light moments come to you, they come to you when you're goofing around with your family, when you're talking on the phone with your friend. They come, those moments when you're exploring nature outside are the observations you're going to make in your novel and your characters walking around outside. If you're sitting there locked in a box working all day, those things aren't going to come to you. You're not going to have that kind of inspiration. You're going to have one type of inspiration, and it's going to be the kind that is really depressing, which works sometimes, but not all the time. And you want to make sure that you're still a person, and you need to feed your body and maintain your body and maintain your brain in order to continue to create. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to put yourself in a really bad place, and you're not going to be able to create anymore. Whether it's from being too depressed, and depression for people who don't have a lot of experience with it generally ends up meaning that you sit there like a lump and you can't do anything. You can find no inspiration. It just lags you down to the point where you're sort of laying there staring into space when it gets really bad. And so you will kill that creativity in you if you let it die. So remind yourself of the good things in your life. Get out there, eat, shower, take a break, walk away from the computer when you can think of nothing else, because those are the things that are going to keep you creating. As weird as it may sound, stopping sometimes is what starts you. I'm done.
Yes, get out of your house. Go, have sunlight, drink water, eat food, have sex, go jogging, do anything, because your craft will suffer, as everyone said. If you're not sleeping. Like one time I stayed up probably for 2 days straight trying to write. I couldn't see anything. By the end, my vision was so blurry. There were so many typos. It was ridiculous. I had like weird red spots on my eye because they were just so tired. Don't do that. It's stupid. And half the words will have to go anyways. It's important to understand that if you're the one writing, if you're suffering, your writing's going to suffer. There's nothing glamorous about being depressed all the time and writing some sort of tragedy. There's like a threshold in which that goes from being really great to Jesus, please end me right now. Like it's really not that much space, between you go from that. You really have to take care of yourself. And it doesn't mean that when you're not writing that you're not contributing or being useful to your passions. And when you're out in the world and experiencing things, like I can't remember if it was Justine. I don't know who said it. Someone said it. Having fun times with your family, that helps to give you that experience to write about. When you're eating, I'm sick of looking things up on the internet. Sometimes you just have to grab an apple and see what it tastes like, what it feels like, what it smells like. All of these things contribute to your experiences, which affect your writing. If you don't eat and sleep and go out into the world and live and actually do stuff, it'll start to show in your writing. It'll start to feel less like a human wrote this and more like Google helped you with all these senses that you long forgot in your little cobweb closet. You need to get out and you need to live, and you need to be kind to yourself. Probably more, I want to say it, more than anyone else. Because you cannot help others write or be as supportive for them if you cannot do that for yourself. And if you cannot do it for yourself, your writing will suffer. So everyone benefits from writers taking care of themselves, mostly you, but everyone benefits. The writing community, the people who rely on you to be encouraging, and you rely on other people to take care of themselves so that they can encourage you. So it's kind of everything's connected. I'm going with that line today. Everything's connected in the writing world. Just take a deep breath. Remember, you are not Superman, and that is okay. He was completely overrated. It's fine. Just be human.
Go Batman.
Yeah, go Batman. I was always an Arrow person, man. I love me a tortured man, but
Batman's a tortured man.
He is a tortured man.
Comics.
All right, there's nothing wrong with Superman. Superman was loved from day one. I don't know why he had so many problems. Should I kill them? Should I not? Anyways, off topic. He had a nice upbringing. But everyone needs to take care of themselves. It will help them to focus more on life, to focus on their craft, to focus on what's most important. And if you're not doing that, then you're the one who's actually going to probably suffer most of all. I'm going to stop because I feel like I'm starting to come around. oscillate. All right, someone else go.
Well, honestly, that's all the questions that we have. And I feel like we are kind of going around in circles right now. So maybe it'd be a good time to end it. I hope that people out there found this helpful. And, you know, my greatest takeaway from all of you guys talking is to just take a step back and take 5 minutes for myself, even if it's 5 minutes. That's my takeaway from all this. So Ari, do you want to wrap it up? What do we got? What's next month?
So next month, I believe it's August 25th, but don't quote me on that because I don't have my calendar in front of me. And it's going to be on the plot points. So we're going to be talking about the inciting incident, the major plot points, the key events, just kind of some of it will be definition, explaining to people when kind of they occur, but it's mostly going over kind of outlining and making sure like that your storyline is moving forward by meeting those events that are happening. So it's not going to be anything focused on plotting or pantsing. It's kind of like a mix of all of that together with just the main points.
Awesome.
We had a lot of people asking about the differences between inciting incident and plot points and key events. So that's why I picked that for August so that anyone doing Nano would have plenty of time to understand what those were. And yeah.
That's awesome. No, and I think it's very important. And I do feel that it's something that should be discussed because I think they do get confused from time to time. But unless anyone has anything else for self-care today, we can definitely sign off. I've had like major fun. I think this was a great one. I think we got down to some real like truths and laid it all bare, which is good from time to time because everyone thinks everyone else is, you know, like untouchable, infallible, and whatever else, and they're doing it wrong and we're all doing it right. When in reality, I feel that way too. So thanks for joining us, guys. I really appreciate it. If anyone has any further questions on self-care for CraftQuest, just drop us a line in the comments below, or you can find us on Twitter at WriteCraftQuest. Thanks, guys.
Bye.